before I get into this very important topic, I want to take a moment to thank all of my supporters and everyone for supporting my channel. So with that being said, let's get on down to today's lecture, which is it's another one of my how-to lectures. And the focus of this lecture is going to be how to turn raw land into your livable habitat and escape this matrix. And one of the things I want to share with the audience is pretty much all of my how-to videos directly ties into a door I have gone through. You know, if the audience is aware, I fully retired September or May, 3 years that I've been in full retirement, but I've escaped the matrix in terms of changing my mindset a couple of years before retirement. So with that, let's get on down to this topic here. In terms of how to turn raw land into your livable habitat, aka escaping the matrix. The first thing first, you got to own raw land. Meaning, so rather you inherit that raw land or you just buy the raw land. You know, with me, the beauty of my situation, my raw land was passed down to me from my mother. So I always tell a person, if you inherited raw land, you know, I'm currently right now living in the country in the middle of nowhere on 15 acres of land, and no one could pay me to return back to the matrix. So the first thing, if you can either purchase your raw land flat out somewhere in the country anywhere, or if you inherited your raw land, the first thing you're going to have to do with that inheritance is get you an attorney and have that will probated. So if you inherited your land from your parents, the first thing that you're going to have to do is probate that parent will. This is literally my mother probated will. That's critical. You go through an attorney, get that will probated, and the purpose of probating the will is to transfer that deed into those heirs' name. That's critical. That's the purpose of probating the will. Before anything can happen. So I did all that. I, had my attorney probated the will. My mother probated will. Now all of the heirs' name is on that deed, because your name got to be on that deed in relation to the property in order to get down to business. So that was done. That was the easy part. I didn't have to, already the land was already heired to me, but I had to go in and hire my attorneys to get that will probated so that now my name reflects on the deed. So that's critical. A second critical piece is, once you've gone through your attorneys to get that will probated, if you are heir property, or if you buy it straight out, your name's still going to be on the deed. The second critical piece is you have got to hire a surveyor. You got to hire a surveyor to go in now on your property to establish boundaries on your property. That's critical. And this is a copy of my survey map that I paid my surveyor to go in after I paid my attorneys to go in and probate my mother will. So now my name appears on the deed. Then my surveyors went in behind that to went in and establish boundaries on my property. That's critical. And typically, in the area I'm in, there are certain people on the who's list in terms of top-notch surveyors. I actually had my property surveyed twice. I had it surveyed one time several years ago. Then I had it surveyed again in 2025. I used the same surveyor because I wanted him to go in and zone in and put those little orange little flags so I could see also the boundaries of my property. So that's critical. So that's done. And tell anybody, And yeah, you're behind going to need working capital to turn raw land into your livable habitat. You're going to need money to do this. You got, you know, in my case, I didn't have to buy my 15 acres. My 15 acres been in my family for 160 years, been passed down to generation. So now, since I'm living on my raw land in my little world, I'm just blessed to God that I'm amazed how I'm literally living on land that I have cultivated that's been in my bloodline for 160 years. Real talk, people. So we talked about probate. We talked about the purpose of that probate net will, so the heirs to the property name can appear on that deed. Talked about getting that property surveyed to establish those boundaries. In addition, also, once that has happened, once you've paid a truckload of money for that piece, then this is where the fun part will begin to occur. Now, you're going to have to hire certain contractors that come in with their expertise. For example, I had to hire contractors to go in and clear 1 acre of my 15 acres. So you got to have working capital for that. Those contractors ain't going to go out there and clear land for free. And one thing about the area, I'm in Jeff Davis County, Georgia, is when you have, I'm finding out, because I've been strategic behind the scene for well over a year now in terms of executing this to make it happen. I've now been living on my property in my camper for going on 6 months on 15 acres. I have escaped the matrix. So once you done all that, I got a very good referral for a contractor. Specifically, I paid him to come in and clear 1 acre of my 15 acres to clear it out. This land I'm living on has been untouched by men, really, more than 160 years. My surveyor, when they went in and surveyed my property and established those boundaries, what I found out by looking at my survey results, there, way back in the day, is an ancient fence on my property, on the surrounding, this triangle of my property. I found out there is an ancient fence. So my forefathers used some of the ancient wood to build the fence around the parameters of that property. Ancient people predates Christ. So I wasn't even aware something that old was on my property. So you pay those contractors to go in and to clear the land out. I also had to pay a different contractor to go in, and once I had 1 acre of the 15 acres cleared, I paid a different contractor to go in and lay crushed concrete to establish a foundation for my camper, aka tiny home. So that was more money. I paid my a second contractor to go in and lay crushed concrete to establish a foundation for my camper. Also, when you develop in raw land, once you, or whatever county you're in, because remember it's raw land, you're going to have to go to the road department in your county so they can come out and put those pipes out there so your area won't flood. That all has to be done. And one thing I can say about once you begin to interface with all of these various different contractors to develop your raw land, the first thing that these various contractors are going to ask for, the attorney is probating the will, the surveyor, when you contract with the surveyor, everybody's asking for a copy of that deed that reflects your name on it. This is literally a copy of my deed that reflects my name on the property. You are not going to be able to interface with all of these stakeholders unless you can show ownership of this raw land. So they're all going to ask for a copy of that deed that's been recorded in the Title Commissioner's office, so you can prove that you own this property before they come out here and do all this work on it. So Now the land has been surveyed. You're going to have to go in because it's no way I can do all this myself. I don't have the equipment to do this. I don't have the equipment to clear land and knock down trees and lay crushed concrete. No. You even if you know how to do it, you still got to have working capital to do it, to buy the equipment, to buy the supplies. Real talk. In going to all of these different stakeholders, coordinating for the road department to come out here on my property to lay those pipes so it won't flood out here. Another area too that you got to remember when you're cultivating raw land, mind you now, when you cultivating raw land in the area I'm in, you got to go to the power company. Yeah, you got to go to the power company and you got to show them a copy of your deed with your name on it. In my area, now you got to coordinate the setup for the power company to come out and drop those power poles and to lay those power lines so you can have power. You're talking about raw land that has been untouched. Now, let me tell you something about the power thing in the area I'm in, because typically when people move somewhere or buy a house or buy a home or move into an apartment, the power poles are already out there. But if you're talking about you're in the middle of the country with a population of 4,000, this area just got internet in 2024. The land has been untouched. So you're talking about raw land. So now you got in my area, when you're talking about getting these power poles out here, when you go to the power company, let me tell you, you got to pay for those power poles in the area I'm in. Marie Holiday had to pay the power company to come out here and drop those poles, people, and to run those power lines. That money owns you. So that's why I say you're going to need working capital. You're going to need work if you want power. And so that's just the power pole and the power line. But let me slow down for a minute. Before I could even do that, I had to pay an electrician, a licensed electrician, to come out here and drop a pole for my meter box. That bill came on me. So you got to pay a licensed electrician to come out on your property, show your deed, where they're going to now drop that power pole for the meter box in order for the power company to come out and drop their power poles and run the lines to the meter box so you can get power and so you can get a bill every month. But I say that to say I had to pay all of that. I had to pay for the power pole. I had to pay that power company to run those power lines. I had to pay that licensed electrician to drop that meter pole and to install that meter box. All that money came out of my pocket, people, in order to develop my raw land, in order to have power out here where I'm living. Real talk. And another part that I had to throw in extra, the power company asked me, since you're paying for all of this up front, do you also want to pay to have emergency lights installed on your power pole to illuminate that land out there that's been untouched for 160 years? So I paid a little more money for them to put an additional light out there on my power pole in the country. Real talk, people, you got to have some working capital in order to make this happen. And another piece, when you're developing raw land, remember now, I'm in the middle of nowhere, so you got to get mail. So in order to get your mail in the country, in the area I'm in, how the process here, once you show evidence, they send you to the sheriff department with your deed, and you have to go to the sheriff department to show them your deed in order to for them to establish your address. You got to go through 911. So I had to physically go to the sheriff department in my county, go to the 911 department with my deed to show to the sheriff department in order for them to physically come out to my property in the middle of nowhere to establish my address. And after I did that, I had to pay another contractor to come in and set up my mailbox in order for me to get mail in the middle of nowhere. Real talk. So you're talking about a lot of logistics and a lot of money behind this on the front end to develop and to cultivate in my 15 acres of raw land that's been in my family for 160 years. This process that I'm spitting this truth, it's the same process. Rather you want to get a house, a RV, a camper, a modular home, a log cabin. If the land is raw in the county that I'm living in, all of these steps are non-negotiable, because you got to get the surveyors involved. You gotta have that deed in your name. You gotta get those contractors in place. You gotta get the road department involved. You gotta get the power company involved for the power poles, in the power line, in the meter box, in the meter pole. You gotta be able to get mail. All of these steps, people, I had to take in order to escape the matrix, in order to develop my raw land into my livable habitat. So I've been out here now for 6 months. And so now I'm living on 15 acres of land even though I'm fully retired, I got more than enough to keep me busy. On this untouched land, there is wild turkey on my land. There are wild hogs on my land. There is deer on my land. So I'll go into an executed contract for hunters to lease some of my property where they can go out there and hunt for a fee on an ongoing basis. So this here. Now I can see the squirrels. I can hear the birds. I'm miles away from other people, and I love it. And one thing I can say about this area that I'm living in, I will be forever grateful. I will be forever grateful for my mother all throughout my childhood. Because we have a homestead out here also. All throughout my childhood, my mother would bring us out here and live off the land, connect with nature, connect with God. You know, in the homestead house, there's another thing you got to pay too if you want ongoing water. Also, once you show a copy of your deed, you're going to have to pay. You're going to have to pay to have them install, set up a well, a deep well. And to me, that's really escaping the matrix when you now have a well on your property, that septic tank on your property. So now it's like all of these steps I had to follow. And yes, you're going to need to have working capital. That's why you plan and budget. And it's not even about having the working capital. It is about shifting your mindset to escape the matrix and live on raw land and literally almost be self-sufficient. Because if you got your well and your well water, I also have a solar power. I have real power. I have a backup plan. And the key thing is I am removed from the matrix, living off land that's been in my family for well over 160 years. And these steps that I'm talking about in terms of probating the will and making sure your name's on the deed and getting those surveyors involved and the correct contractors involved and the road department involved and the power company involved and establishing that address. But the main thing, getting that probated will and that your name on the deed, this is how you continue to pass down generational wealth. Because this truth I'm spitting, I know many people within families get inherited land, but they don't have the knowledge and the know-how to go in and probate that will and get their name on the deed and making sure you're paying those property taxes to keep that land in your family, to keep that land in your bloodline for the next 160 years, and then to speak that truth to other heirs. It ain't about just me. It's other heirs too in relation to this property that I'm living on, that I inherited from my mother by probating her will. She was ahead of the game, people. And you better make sure I'm passing this knowledge down to other heirs in my family, because one day I'm gonna be gone, and I'm setting the stage to be a important person to pass this land that I'm living down to the next 160 years in the future. And that is the whole purpose of this lecture right here. Not about just how to turn raw land into your livable habitat, but how to pass down generational wealth, because this land is priceless. I'm making money just by living off my land, by going into contractual agreements for folks to hunt on my land, or going into contractual agreements for people to camp on my land. Real talk. Going into making money when folks want to come out here and cut down some of my oak trees to make fire, to put in the pit grill. It's limitlessly real talk. It's more about knowing, having the knowledge, skills, and the ability and the resources to pass down that generational wealth to that next generation. And again, I will be forever, I lost my mother at the age of 23 years old. So I'm 23 years old, inheriting all of this, and I was able to maintain it all the way up until I'm 61 years old now, and maintaining it, people, versus losing it. And it's not about just paying that property tax. It's about having all these legal documents in place, with your probated will, the information from your attorney, the information from your surveyors to show ownership. Real talk. So again, share this information, because I've had many conversations with people in the real world throughout my life who have lost their own inheritance. It was inherited property, but lost it because they didn't know the ins and outs. Real talk. So again, share this information. And like I said, this is a how-to video in regards to how to turn raw land into your livable habitat. I don't care if you want to put a tiny house on the raw land, a camper on the raw land, an RV on the raw land, a cabin on the raw land, or a 2,000 foot square home on the raw land. But let me tell you something. In terms of leasing the county that I'm living in, when you're living in a marginal home or a mobile home or RV or a camper, because you can get those as big as you want to get them or as small as you want to get them. Get what works for you. But when you get in like a camper or RV or mobile home, that is, and I got my camper anchored into the ground. I paid contractors to anchor my camper into the ground. It's got a carport over it, so it's got a foundation. It's completely covered. It's my home, because throughout my life, I lived in the big homes in North Carolina and Atlanta, Georgia, and to me, more or less is more people. But I'm gonna tell you something. When you live on your property, rather it is a marginal home, a mobile home, RV, camper, your home, for TITES purposes, with the TITES Commissioner's Office, those, RV, camper, mobile home is considered a vessel, just like a car, versus a home. So if it's considered a vessel, it don't matter if it's anchored down, then it does not raise your property taxes because it's mobile. But if you were to build a home on your property, and that home has a foundation and it's fits, that will raise your property tax because it's a home. But if it's a vessel, a mobile home, or a mobile home or a camper or RV, for tax purposes, that's not considered a taxable item because it's considered a vessel. Real talk. So that means your property tax does not raise when you do that. And I found that out when I had to take all of my information down to the TITES office. But you still have to register that vessel. You have to register that mobile home or that camper or that RV with the TITES Commissioner's Office. So you pay like your yearly registration fee. But to be honest with you, I don't even pay the yearly fee, because by me being a veteran, service connected veteran, I don't pay anything for registration when I have to register my vehicle or register my property. Or for example, if I would have been stupid enough to build a home on this property, I still wouldn't have had to pay any property types because I'm a veteran at 100% service connected. So, but like I said, I didn't want to go direction of a traditional house because I'm minimalism. Less is more. So that can free me up so I can continue to go travel and see the 7 wonders of the world debt-free, real talk. So again, this is the process. These are the steps that I went through to turn my raw land into my livable habitat. And I just, again, I'm just grateful for God that I have embraced this lifestyle. I have shifted my mindset into minimalism, connecting with nature, connecting with God. And I tell anybody, you know, I even told my niece this, you know, to be in full retirement and to be in a position where I can literally reinvest. I've been reinvesting 100% of my retirement income for the past 3 years. My bills are so low, I don't even need the money. The totality of all the bills I have in the world is $410 a month. You can't get no cheaper than that. And like I say, if somebody was to offer to pay me $1 billion a year to return back to the matrix in the workforce, in the house, I would decline, because the lifestyle that I'm living right now is priceless, real talk. So that's all I have, and I appreciate everyone for chiming in, for supporting my channel. Be on the lookout for more how-to videos. And like I said, when I do a how-to video, check out some of my other how-to videos in my playlist. But when I do a how-to video, it's always a topic in relation to a door that I have gone through. Real talk. It ain't, I'm not doing this lecture based off what so-and-so said or based off research. No, I have gone through the door in relation to turning my raw land into my livable habitat. So that's all I have. Simple fidelity, and I'm going to leave you in the care of your own conscience. Have a great day.